We've been working with lots of customers over the years and helping them to migrate into the cloud. And, we always talk to customers about it. Microsoft always talks to customers about it, about, the best way to utilize and leverage the cloud is to, exploit platform as a service, drives the cost down, better flexibility, better functionality, quicker time to release code, all of that great stuff. But actually doing it is a different kettle of fish, isn't it?
Yeah. So we find that a lot of customers come in and just lift and shift. They try and treat Azure as a secondary data center. So they've can they have like a large physical estate, and they'll just pick it up, move it into Azure. It's not the most cost-effective way of using Azure, but it's the easiest way. And we tend to see a lot of projects come in to doing that. What's not always considered is moving straight to PaaS or partially to PaaS, so platform as a service. So there's a lot of tangible benefits in moving to a hybrid between IaaS and PaaS, or just straight to PaaS, that aren't just cost savings. So that could be reducing operational overhead. So instead of having your infrastructure teams and internal IT teams looking after keeping the lights on, so to speak, they can remove that from their day-to-day activities, let Azure deal with all of that. So automatic patching, backups, things like that. Effectively, you're removed from that layer. It allows your IT teams to focus on more of the innovation and development of the services rather than keeping the lights on.
Yeah, so all sounds great. And kind of everyone understands that it's great to a certain degree.
Yeah.
You don't talk to many people or many organisations that don't get that there could be a fairly powerful change in the way that they operate if they move to more of a platform as a service kind of approach to utilising the cloud. But it's difficult to do, and a lot of that is kind of organisational and skills as much as anything, isn't it? So how do you help customers kind of get over that kind of cultural as well as process shift?
There is a bit of a misunderstanding in terms of that it's complicated to do. It's not the most complicated to move straight to these PaaS services. Microsoft have a lot of assessment tools and migration tools that enable you to easily switch to them. So it's a similar kind of effort to move, let's just use SQL for an example, a physical SQL server into a SQL managed instance. There's a data migration assistant and various migration tools that we can use to move that data into Azure.
So Will says it's easy.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. But there is a bit of a step change if you start talking about, true DevOps, pets not cattle, all of those kind of, terminologies and methodologies, and shifting into treating your workloads as fully automated and things like that. That is a bit of a journey to go on, isn't it? And I know you've been working with a customer recently to kind of help them, retrospectively fit in things like Terraforms into their environment.
Yeah, so we've had a customer come to us recently who are quite early in their journey into Azure, and they've built up their platform as an IaaS only platform, and they've just done it effectively through ClickOps in the portal, and they're reaching the point where they want to scale it up and scale it out, and they'd heard the buzzwords of IAC, infrastructure as code, Bicep and Terraform. So they've approached us recently to see if we can go into their environment, look at what they have, and retrospectively write the Terraform code for that environment. What we will be able to do, we will be able to write that code for them, and it'll enable them to move to more of a CI/CD DevOps methodology and deployment methodology, so that they can make more improvements, but also have the whole environment there in code. So if they wanted to create a complete replica in a different region, or say that they were expanding into a different market and for data sovereignty reasons they needed to be within a different region, they could effectively just go and spin up a new pipeline, deploy the whole thing again as is. No error, no operational error, no naming issues, etc. So yeah, it's quite an interesting one.
Yeah, powerful when you start to move into that kind of, you know, really changing the way that you deploy and workloads and things like that. And Stephen, they're one of our managed service customers, and I think it's been interesting working with them, and kind of whilst the cloud is, you know, people understand how to use the cloud, but the time and bandwidth to kind of bring about some of these, you know, more modern methodologies and change the way they're working is far from straightforward. And it's something we see quite regularly with our managed service customers, isn't it? It's, you know, finding how and where to help them the most.
Yeah, exactly that. So the whole purpose of us providing managed service around Azure for customers is to remove that sort of day-to-day headache for them. We're there as, to use a phrase, an extension of their IT team, basically. So we can, you know, manage it on a day-to-day basis, be there 24/7, so that if any incidents do occur, we can be there on hand to help them and remediate any issues. So, you know, making sure that everything is monitored, and we've got checks and balances in place to ensure that we are aware of any issues that may occur affecting the availability of any of the resources, whether that is infrastructure as a service or platform as a service, whatever it may be, we're there to help them. And to go back to that point, it really allows them to focus on the more strategic options and look at, okay, how can we modernise our infrastructure over time without having to worry about the day-to-day tactical operations.
Yeah, and it's a really important point, isn't it, that something we try to work hard on is that the managed service is not on board, wander off, leave the customer to it, charge them monthly. You know, we're really working hard to make sure that it's a continuous and ongoing engagement, and looking to improve, you know, how they operate within the cloud, right?
Yeah, exactly that. So this is why it's really great to work with Will and, you know, the professional services team who do that onboarding and deployment. So part of that journey we go through with the customer is to understand, okay, this is where you are today, and this is where you need to get to in the next 12, 18 months, whatever it may be, whatever their journey is. So we can, you know, look at where they are today and take that information from the onboarding process and set sort of milestones throughout that life cycle and that journey that we can show that we can demonstrate the value and show the maturity in the journey we're taking them through. So we're not just there to, you know, just be reactive and keep the lights on. We can, you know, through service governance and working really closely with the customer over time, go, okay, let's look at this next step we can take. Let's focus on this. This is what we're going to do the next month, next 3 months, whatever it may be. And yeah, through that sort of service wraparound that we provide you, and we can sort of take the customer through that.
And presumably, you know, the more we automate things with our customers, the more it helps to reduce things like configuration drift, which, you know, improves their security posture and all the rest of it. And I know kind of, you know, one of the other things that you're working with our customers on is that kind of, you know, security operations, you know, helping to build out services for them that helps them to stay safe when there's all of these things happening out in the world. One, I don't know how you sleep at night. I'm not sure I would. But two, I know security is a big passion of yours, and you know, what are the main things that you're seeing that, you know, customers really need help with at the moment?
Again, back to our point we were discussing before about onboarding. So one of the first things we do is, you know, get a sort of security review in there in terms of the current tool sets deployed, and look at what policies we can implement across the customer's estate to sort of give them a baseline of where they are now. That allows us then to sort of identify what potential tooling that we can implement. So, you know, looking at cloud security posture management as an example of that. So making sure that we've got a good set of eyes across how the technology is being used in the cloud and any weaknesses that may be present there, all the way through to providing, you know, XDR or, you know, detection response tooling across the services that they are using in the cloud. Then, as you said, to keep you up at night, providing that service wrap. So from a 24/7 basis, we, you know, can provide eyes on and make sure that if any incidents are occurring from a security point of view, that we've got services and people there on hand to help respond to those issues or incidents as they occur, and, you know, give the customer that peace of mind.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. And take me through the, you know, the kind of the XDR methodology. You know, what does it look like? What happens? You know, what's the critical path? How do we help them? What does it look? What do we do?
Yeah, certainly. So, in Azure, we use the Defender set of products. So, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Cloud, and then that all wraps into Sentinel, which is a SIEM tool. So it's basically a hub where we ingest all that information. that allows us then to create sort of rules that say if this action happens on this device or service, then it means that this nefarious or bad actor or bad action is happening on that. If we then get that alert, what that allows us to do is provide a sort of set runbook to say, okay, we will go and take these proactive steps just to remediate the issue or stop that incident or issue from propagating further throughout the customer's infrastructure. So by agreeing all of that up front through defined workbooks or runbooks, we can then agree with the customer up front so that they, any time that incident occurs, whether it be in the day or at night, that they know that somebody's going to follow that step-by-step procedure across a virtual machine or a user's laptop, whatever it may be, either through an automated response or a manual human sort of responding themselves, like on the command line or terminal, that we're going to go through and follow those steps. So for a customer's point of view, they know that if anything happens, that they've got coverage and they don't need to worry about it as much. And then what we can do proactively from that point onwards as well is to work with the customer to say, okay, over the past month, you've had all of these incidents that have occurred relating to a set incident, or they may all be in the same sort of family. Let's proactively go and make some changes in your environment to stop that incident from occurring in the first place. So we're working, again, not just reactive, we're working proactive with the customer to help improve their maturity and their posture over time.
And okay, so I guess, a big focus is on us trying to help customers to stabilize operations, bridge the skills gap, reduce budgets with all these managed services and all the rest of it. And then by automating things, make it easier to deploy new workloads and the rest of it. And, a big thing, whilst customers are still bottoming out where AI works and how AI works and all the rest of it, I know something that we are seeing more and more of is customers looking to use and exploit Fabric for more and more of their data needs. What things excite you most when you're working with the customers? What are the things you're really looking forward to working with on a customer once we've got them to that kind of steady state within the cloud?
I like trying to take a customer solution that is, very much legacy IaaS, a collection of Windows servers, Linux servers. Sometimes we have customers that come in that have inherited an estate that they don't really know much about. And we've had a couple of engagements where we've had to sit down with them, effectively run through all of the resources that they've got deployed, all of the servers that they've got deployed. And I usually find that it helps to break it down into applications rather than thinking of a server as this server does X, this server does Y. It's no, this collection of resources makes up this application. And once you've broken it down into applications, then you can start to look at how we can kind of utilize more of the PaaS resources. So is that something that we can, legacy application that we can take into app service plans? And is it a traditional remote desktop services, and can we move them onto Azure Virtual Desktop? Because they're the more interesting parts of Azure, and usually where, not from just a cost saving or cost management perspective, but from the auto scaling up and scaling out capabilities. It makes it a lot more reliable. So that's what interests me the most.
So yeah, it's a really interesting point that Will mentioned there, and it's something that we take that insight of understanding a customer's applications and specific applications within their environment and how we monitor them on an ongoing basis. So we do provide monitoring across the whole of the infrastructure and environment on an ongoing basis, but what we also create is specific insights, so we can see how a customer's application or department is working throughout the whole infrastructure as a workflow. So even if the whole overall infrastructure looks everything's online and green, if there's a specific individual sort of bug or delay or latency within an application, we provide specific workflows on an ongoing basis to monitor those applications. So yeah, it's a really interesting point you raised there, Will.
Yeah, good stuff. And another point that Will mentioned was talking about AVD. VDI will never die. And it was certainly, over the last year or so, we've seen sort of even more of an uptake in people adopting and deploying AVD. And I think, you know, the conversations are continuing and looking set to continue with, you know, some of the traditional players changing the way that they operate with customers and things like that, which is why there's a, you know, it's a really important part of the managed service, isn't it, that, you know, that specifically is targeted at AVD and helping customers to manage AVD, because managing VDI is difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. And yeah, we're seeing a lot of attention, or sort of a lot of growth in that area. And that's why we are providing services around sort of, AVD and managing that infrastructure on an ongoing basis. One of the things that I found the most interesting speaking to customers is that everybody's using it in some capacity. So what we're providing services around is if you're using it as your sort of main environment, you know, for users to use on an ongoing basis, and providing the service around maintaining that image management, application management. But the other side that customers are also using it for is almost like a DR platform, you know, making sure that they've got an environment that they can use, say, if they're loss of site, loss of office, whatever it may be, in that sort of business continuity scenario. They've got a secondary platform they can switch users over to, which I'm finding is actually really interesting in terms of customers having to maintain that secondary platform, because they know how easy it is to spin up and use and get users switched over to it if, you know, there's a massive loss of devices, or they can't access their office, for example.
Yeah, I think it kind of sums up the cloud, doesn't it? You know, that flexibility and that kind of always-on nature and scalability, that's just there and baked in. So it's about using it and exploiting it as much as possible. And, you know, a big part of Bytes Cloud Services is helping customers to exploit those technologies, you know, across migrations, doing the migrations in the right way, modernising in the right way, starting to exploit, you know, Fabric for their data needs, and, you know, looking at Azure AI Foundry to, you know, build the new and the next in the applications. And then we wrap those support and managed services around for when customers need it, and there's a skills gap. Any final thoughts? And actually something that's just popped into my head, because I know it's very close to your heart, Stephen, is observability, and, you know, extending the scope outside of Azure, because very few people are just all one thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. My favourite word. I work with customers as well, and I know it's something that they love to see is, you know, the single pane of glass. So providing a observability platform so we can see the whole estate, whether that be hybrid cloud or, you know, on-prem. Once we start to work with customers and show them that sort of visibility so they can see everything in one place, they start to see a lot of the issues in latency, or, you know, things becoming out of date that exist in their on-prem environment. And that's why it works really well working with Will and his team, so we can identify those issues in one platform and work with the customer again over that life cycle of their service to, you know, look at modernising that infrastructure that sits outside of the cloud and help them to bring that in through our professional services team.
Yeah, cool. Yes, it's a big focus of our cloud services is, you know, working with customers across the board, and, you know, working them out over the longer term and not just in the short term. Cool.